Welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County, a political, progressive, grassroots group that's always looking for new members. Our guest today is Helen Klisser During, a private art advisor, curator, and photographer who works with major artists, art galleries, auction houses, museums, and art fairs globally. She's the director of visual arts at the Westport Arts Center and former gallery director of Silvermine Galleries, and has also served as art advisor to the Art Dubai and the New York Art Armory. A recent show that Helen curated at the Westport Arts Center was called Hope in Haiti, and we've asked her here today to talk about that project, how it came about, and what she learned. Helen, welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Thank you, John.
So Haiti, you went there shortly after the earthquake in 2010, and you had a mission. Tell us about how you got involved.
Very quickly, I was invited to an exhibition at NYU, and I was introduced to Melky Jean, sister of Wyclef Jean. Both of them are hip-hop singers, and as you know, Wyclef Jean is a very famous hip-hop singer that actually ran for president, and then, because he did not live there, in fact was superseded by another hip-hop singer who's now the president of Haiti.
Right.
But so I was invited by Melky Jean to visit 3 weeks later their orphanage. They sponsor an orphanage called Carma House, where 50 orphans reside. However, in the earthquake, the orphanage was flattened.
As was very much else in Haiti. What did you find when you got there?
It was devastating. I'd never been to Haiti, so I know that it has always suffered incredible poverty, but nothing could prepare me for the devastation. It was 3 months after the earthquake, and the rubble was still very present. It's still present. People were still today. And then the tent cities, to see thousands of people living in makeshift tents, you know, from the shelter box tents, which are almost like the Ritz of tents, to the just sheets and sacking, and thousands, millions of people living this way.
And so when you got to Haiti and you started to tour around, what did you do?
Well, I, as you know, take many pictures and
Yes.
shoot for Westport Now and also some other art journals. I love taking pictures. And I've been very fortunate that those pictures are usually in the art world, or of sunsets on Campo Beach, or of, you know, politicians I like. So this was a very different thing, but to document as much as I possibly could document. So with another photographer, Elizabeth Jordan, we segued away from the group and hired our own driver and went into Port-au-Prince. And some of those images that I took in Port-au-Prince, of particularly a man bathing his child, he happened to be amputated.
Right.
He had nothing. And it was right outside the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which was flattened. But that image went to the, you know, I sent them to the UN. I sent them to everyone. And they used the images on their website.
Now,
so it was a fresh
that man
view.
was amputated. He had one leg amputated, is that right?
One leg amputated.
Yes.
And there's some images that you'll see taken from the hospital, another makeshift hospital from the University of Miami, and you'll see, you know, hundreds of crutches. You'll see, you know, makeshift wheelchairs. So it's like a beach chair with bicycle wheels, and that's so there's an enormous amount of amputees because of the earthquake. But this man in particular, he was in the middle of the street bathing his children, and you know, I sort of was watching this, and at the same time, one doesn't want to sort of exploit a situation or be a voyeur. So I had a sort of a second, you know, eye contact. Is it okay to take a picture? And I did. And then, you know, afterwards went up to him and gave him $20. You know, I had a sort of a pocket full of $20 for about 10 seconds, and then everybody else got the $20. Right. But he then showed me his tent. But I was so impressed with the resilience of someone who had nothing. You know, we talk about a phoenix that rises from the ashes, and he was that. And I called the picture Indelible Love. And it was, he had nothing in it, yet his arms were that of an Amazonian. You know, the way he was holding his son's head, and it was profound to me.
Now, you said that you were traveling around with another woman and a driver.
Yeah.
And this is after a horrible, catastrophe in Haiti, where much, if not most, of the cities were destroyed. And so usually in that sort of situation, you find that there, is not much in the way of security, law and order. Did you feel, as a woman, threatened in that situation?
To step back, you're right. One would have been extremely vulnerable as a woman, and a seemingly rich woman with a big camera.
Yes.
Where everyone is extremely poor. But we, the other photographer and I, were invited by Melky Jean to join her group. Mm-hmm. So we all met at Fort Lauderdale, and there were 16 of us. So there was a DJ, Kay Fox from New York, and so all these people that were really interested in doing something. There was a vice president of Crocs Shoes. There was a wonderful woman that's a huge philanthropist from Colorado, Leslie Sosnowski, who also is there. And so we went as a group, and primarily first to give away the Crocs shoes and get uniforms for the children at the orphanage, to visit the orphanage.
Right.
But where we settled was Wyclef Jean's house. He had bought the sort of ranch right across from a former carousel ground, a playground, and there were probably 1,000 tents in that space. But we went as a group, but Elizabeth Jordan, the other photographer, and I did not want to sort of be hindered with 16 people.
Right.
And with that group, we always had an armed guard.
It's really difficult in a situation like that to know what to do and what's acceptable and what isn't, and what's dangerous and what isn't.
Yeah. But we were very well looked after with Melky Jean.
Sure.
It was that we were probably a bit pushy, and
you pushed the envelope.
Pushed the envelope.
Yeah.
And I think, my eyes were opened, I think very much so. And really the sensitivity of taking pictures or shooting pictures.
Right.
The word shooting a picture is very much apropos if you're shooting a gun. There's no sensitivity to the person, but the people that I sent my pictures to from Haiti, the Publisher Art Forum, people that I knew, because they knew me, they felt closer to the situation.
So you went to take photographs, and you also went with a lot of cameras.
I went with many cameras, but very inexpensive cameras.
Right. So tell us about those, because those, you have today with you your Nikon camera. It's obviously it's expensive. It's a nice professional model, but that's not the only set of cameras you took with you.
No. I brought these. This is just the casing of a little disposable Fuji camera.
Right.
From
the kind you get at a wedding.
The kind you get at a wedding, the kind you get at Walmart's.
That's right.
So I bought, 50 of these cameras.
Okay.
And I thought, well, what else am I going to do in Haiti? We all think, we look at these terrible situations worldwide, what can we do to help? And I was very inspired by a story, a film called Born into Brothels.
Yes, of course, in India.
In India,
yeah.
where children were given cameras, prostitutes' children.
Right.
And when those pictures were sold, the kids' pictures,
right,
it went back into giving these children education.
And some of these children actually made it to Europe, I think, as a result of that project, and have going to school there and learning more about art. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was very moving to me how that art making, the picture taking, could make a difference.
And your life is about art.
My life is very much about art.
Yes.
And to see that, that making art, very much like the film Wasteland, featuring Vic Muniz, which was shot at a landfill, largest landfill in the world in Brazil, did make a difference for those 6, 7, 8 people. But
so your idea was to go to Haiti and to do something with your art, or with their art, that would help them in some way through this tragedy.
Exactly. It was to share a passion that I have for taking pictures. And in fact, taking a picture, yes, you have the receipt of it, the receipt of time, the image. But what's more important is to be able to frame a moment and remember it. And I think that meeting these children, they're orphans. They've lost everything.
Yes.
What do you keep most? Are memories. And how do you do that? And I think it's by framing an image. And on a very conceptual level, there are artists that I greatly respect, international ones like James Turrell, where he just frames the sky. but forces you to look at it. And in taking a picture, very much in the Cartier-Bresson style, it's capturing a moment. So I wanted to somehow relay this in a very simple way to the kids.
Yes.
And I thought bringing cameras, yes, you know, it can document directly how they're living through their eyes, much more immediate. You know, who are they? And bring us closer to them. So bringing them back and then hoping to curate exhibitions that would really, you know, make Joe Blogg on the street a lot closer to how they live and the children's innocence.
So how many children were there in the orphanage, do you know?
Yes, there were 50 children.
Okay, that's why you took 50 cameras.
50 cameras.
Right.
And they're, you know, really well cared for by Melky Jean and all her teachers. And its music is the heartbeat of the orphanage.
Okay.
So as we entered, music, you know, the kids were playing music, they were singing, and then we were giving them Crocs. You know, the Crocs is an incredible company, and you know, there's enormous prevention of diseases by having good shoes, and Crocs is giving millions of shoes away worldwide.
Wow.
So settling in, then I was given my moment where I had a teacher, a translator in Creole, explain to them how to use the cameras, and all I said was, well, there's no bad picture unless you put your finger over the lens, which is actually quite easy on one of these silly cameras.
Right.
But what I wanted them to do is really look at everything. There was a rock down at my feet, so I sort of crouched down to the rock and said, if I look at it, you know, from the bottom up, it can look like a mountain, but just to really experiment with the cameras and go off. So they kept the cameras for 2 days, and then I came back to pick them up. Now, the mileage from Port-au-Prince to Legone is not very far, but the roads were disastrous. So it took us almost 2 hours to be there.
Right.
And of course, having no idea what it would be like, you know, it's all a bit of a risk. I didn't know, you know, how the kids would really understand what was, you know, had they ever taken a picture? And but they clicked on very quickly. And I was showing them also my big camera. I take pictures of them and then let them see themselves on the back. And even in the hospital, even there are images that you will see where there was a boy smiling, which I thought he had a broken arm, but in fact he was amputated from the hip. But he wanted to see his own picture.
Yes.
People are very intrigued with looking at themselves.
Yes,
so, but I could immediately show them, okay, if I'm taking this picture, this is what it would look like.
Right.
And the children's pictures are really powerful.
So you gave them, each of the children, a camera, and you came back 2 days later
to pick them up.
And in the meantime, they were free to take any photographs that they wanted.
And they tended to take pictures of, you know, the cats, the dogs, the donkeys, or anything themselves, each other. No different from kids in Connecticut.
Sure.
I mean, it's very few of them focused on the destruction, which was interesting.
Yes.
And even though it was all around us, but it was much more on a humane level of each other. But also, you know, there were lots of cats and kittens and dogs running around and chickens, and but this was a very wonderful image of a mother and child, and that's the village surrounding the orphanage. And those pictures, I mean, they're incredibly powerful and telling. And so I call the show Hope in Haiti. And hope's a stretch because it's a very tough place to govern.
Right.
And the government's very weak.
Yes.
And everybody wants to help, but at the same time, these children are innocent, and one has to hope, because if you don't have it, there's very little else. And then I linked up with America's as well, and they were the partner with us at the Westport Arts Center.
And so you brought all of the photographs back and you created a show.
Yes, now I was invited to do so by the former director, executive director Nancy Heller, and I'm indebted to the Westport Arts Center, to the sponsors, to Anne Scheffer, for helping enable the exhibition to take place. I wasn't expecting to do it at the Arts Center. I thought it was too close to home, and it subsequently had a one-night event at Saatchi in New York, and some of my images will be going permanently to the United Nations, but it was one of the most important things, I think, for me to be part of, is to bring all of this back to Westport. And now we're working with Save the Children Fund with a project in September where we invited children to think about the concept of love. What does it mean to them? So these are children, 100 children were given this concept, and we've just received their images. So I'll be exhibiting those pictures in our small project space. But it's important to really find partnership and within our community, and at the same time mix the hyper-local with the bigger picture.
Right.
And so certainly the Westport Arts Center, has been superb in really getting this across. We had vital voices during the Hope in Haiti exhibition. I think they had over 100 people come and listen to Felicia Dell, who was a spokesperson for Haiti, an artist making bags that are now sold at Diane von Furstenberg. We had Helen Clark, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, who's now the head of the UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, come with Anne Veneman, the former head of UNICEF, and meet with Kurt Welling, the president of Americares. Americares hosted their own big event one night. We've had multiple events at the Arts Center really thinking about Haiti, and having very interesting groups coming through and children coming through and learning about whether these big boxes of medicine for cholera are being still shipped off to Haiti through Americares, or looking at the children's pictures.
And so, of course, Save the Children is headquartered here in Westport. We're in Norwalk today, but you're working in Westport. And Americares is also headquartered here in Fairfield County.
Exactly, in Stamford.
In Stamford. And so these are two terrific organizations that reach out around the world and provide help to children and to people in need. What other things could people here in Fairfield County, if they wanted to get involved in a project like this, if they wanted to support it in some way, what could they do?
Many things. Hard cash is good.
Cash is cash.
Cash is cash. Certainly, there are many groups. Rotary's amazing. There's one image that shows the Rotary shield on one of the shelter boxes. But Builders Beyond Borders, many children from, my own children included, join that, where they're going out physically to help build schools or water systems. Right. But I think that with the Westport Arts Center, there's always opportunities to really help, and it's beyond just pictures. The pictures are just the tip of the iceberg, and all of these exhibitions become quite organic, and we then see and learn. I think it's very back to basics. It's looking and learning, and if you can look and learn, bring awareness to something, hopefully there's change.
So what's the situation today with the orphanage that you visited in Haiti?
They've rebuilt it, and it's very much in need of funds for teachers, for the education. Very small percentage of Haitian children get government education, right. So it's a small orphanage, right. And then you think it's a drop in the bucket, yes. And so many people initially saying, oh, but we've given money to Haiti and it's going nowhere. Of course, that's so true. But at the same time, very much like the way America has started with a drop in the bucket. The founder was watching TV in the 70s. There was a plane crash in Vietnam. The US government could not rescue the 50 surviving children. The founder mortgaged his house and was able to organize an airlift. And then America's started. Right. And I think, we're all drops in the bucket. Obviously, there needs to be policy in place, and but I think everybody can do something. And there was a boy that came to the Arts Center for the Haiti show, and he was celebrating his bar mitzvah, and he wanted to give all the books. Literacy was, readings rather, was a very important part of his life. He found it difficult to read as a young boy, and became an avid reader. So the theme of his bar mitzvah were books. So they're going to give the books to the children in Haiti. But the big obstacle, one, the children are not reading in English.
Of
If anything,
course.
is French, speaking Creole.
Right.
Two, the shipping of the books. So what he did, in fact, was then give money. And what we did also with the photographs, and I think we skipped over that, or I skipped over it, each image, each child's image was sold for $100.
Really?
And then that went straight back to the orphanage.
Okay.
And this is unframed. And framed it was $200. But it was a very simple way of giving back
Right.
to the orphanage.
Right.
And then for the rebuilding of it and the sustaining element of the orphanage, teachers, food, basic things, books.
And is there any ongoing effort with those children to further develop the idea of photography and art?
Certainly music, and then I need to go back. But I've just, as of yesterday, one of the philanthropists that came on the trip with me in April has just bought one of the pictures, a very big picture, of the man bathing his child. And we'll be bringing more of the little books that I made. I gave a book of the children's images to Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, last November. And so the children will get more of these books, but for them, you know, I think it would be great if we could get sponsorship from Fuji or Kodak or someone, that they could have their own cameras and continue to document. But
That would be terrific.
yeah, and I think pictures, my father was a Holocaust survivor, and there was very little that he could bring with him, you know, and I think most people coming from such dire circumstance, the only thing they can bring with them are usually pictures, photos. And so
true.
I think, you know, and there's a real pleasurable element to taking pictures. You know, I just went to a wedding, very simple, but it's, you know, as you say, these are like wedding cameras, but to treasure those moments.
Sure.
So yes, I'd love to continue that, but I think the children should have, you know, cameras that are digital and then have, you know, laptops with internet that they could look at, and these are all big wish lists because they're very fundamental things that are needed too, and it's that balance of arts and culture and education.
So what's up for you with the Westport Arts Center next? What's coming up in the fall?
The next show is called Love in the Eye of the Beholder.
Okay.
And it's a group show, a member show, and it was sprung off the idea that the Westport Playhouse is presenting Twelfth Night. So again, love being a major theme, perception, major theme, deception also. But so I thought that was a great idea for the member artists, which are almost 400 at Westport Arts Center.
Right.
And within that theme, we have the Save the Children Fund link with the small project space and love through the eyes of the children in Malawi.
And when does that open?
September 16th.
Great. And
Please come.
Yes, and then also you have an art cafe on Friday mornings.
Yes.
Yes.
This is so much fun. One, if you like coffee and homemade muffins.
Yes, which are terrific.
Very good. All free.
Yes.
And
in a lovely space.
a beautiful space overlooking the river in Westport. But what's wonderful is it's really a dialogue with everyone that comes in, but looking at what's happening around us in the art world, locally, but also on a much bigger scale. So I use the New York Times as the springboard, the arts section of the New York Times, the Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, Art News, ArtNet, anything, and also just running around museums and galleries. And then we'll either present images or, you know, just talk physically, looking at the newspaper.
So a quick update on the arts brings you in touch with what's going on in the world.
I think so, and it's like a book group where you don't have to read the book. You know, everyone can say something. But if I can find, you know, an expert, and we have David Kennedy spoke to us about a play he'd seen in New York. So you know, from the Westport Westport Theatre, rather Playhouse. From the Westport Playhouse, David Kennedy presented to our group a play that he was passionately excited about. Or we might have Sumner Glimsher who will speak about a movie that we definitely mustn't miss. But I really think it's a marvelous place for people to meet. It's a sense of community. We have many programs, great education programs, as you know, and chamber music, jazz. But the Art Cafe is very relaxed, and it's a place where you meet other like-minded people, passionate about not just the arts, but life, full stop.
It's a very interesting group. Helen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, John.
I enjoyed it, and thank you also for the work that you've done, and keep us informed.
I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. A recent episode of Terry Gross in Fresh Air talks about David Petraeus and the militarization of the intelligence community. But it doesn't examine the problem that I see in the future. Terry interviewed Noah Shachtman, an expert on high-tech military intelligence who writes the Danger Room blog for Wired magazine. Let's listen to Terry Gross. How do you feel about the military leader heading the CIA? Shachtman. Well, it's not just Petraeus. The Director of National Intelligence is a former general, Jim Clapper. The head of National Security Agency is a general, Keith Alexander. There's an increasing fusion of the military world and the intelligence world. You see that with Petraeus going to the CIA and Leon Panetta going to the Pentagon. What used to be very distinct activities governed by different legal regimes reporting to different panels in Congress, the lines between them have become increasingly fuzzy. Shachtman continues, more and more of this global war that America spent $1 trillion on, more and more of it is receding into the shadows. You've got those private contractors who are maybe accountable, maybe they're not. They're using technologies that are highly classified, that the great unwashed aren't allowed to see. A lot of this war is now being conducted by secretive special operations units and by the clandestine CIA paramilitary organizations. There was a time when you could see the war unfold at least a little bit on TV, and that time has kind of passed. My concern goes deeper. The CIA has become the private army of the president, any president. Their budget is buried so no one can see it. The leadership in Congress is afraid to question whatever is done. The press has relegated itself to cheerleader status, and now the CIA is being integrated into the most lethal part of the military, special ops. We've survived as a nation with civilian leadership for over 200 years, but that doesn't guarantee that this will continue. Never before has the military security complex had so much power with so little oversight, or so tenuous a link to the electorate as a whole. The volunteer army has created an incredibly proficient force, which is, for the most part, utterly detached from most Americans and the life of this country. Our military is fighting 2.5 wars. June was the bloodiest month in Iraq in 3 years, but it hardly affects the vast majority of our citizens. We content ourselves with patriotic slogans and vague support for our troops, but jobs, gay marriage, abortion, tax cuts for the wealthy, Casey Anthony, who's up in the polls and how much money have they raised, dominate the news and the political cycle. The magician diverts our attention elsewhere before pulling the rabbit out of the hat. In America, today, cable news performs that service, but our security state magicians really have no intention of exposing the rabbit to broad daylight. In fact, they deny there is a rabbit, and would tell us the same about the hat if they could. It's time to refocus the CIA on intelligence gathering rather than operations, to have a military for defense rather than one geared for occupation and transformation of countries halfway around the world, and a lot of sunlight on both. This has been a Stream of Conscience commentary. I'm John Hartwell.